Marcus, I don't know about you, but I think there is a problem with too much data and information. Do you see data overload as a problem in your daily work?
Yes. Years ago, I'm just going to equate this back to years ago. Well, it's just like, so when I first started, working with lead, and it was like, we went from prescriptive to performance, right? So, because people are like, well, it's too prescriptive, it's not performance based enough. So it's just like the different versions changed, and they're going to be like, we're going to have more performance. So in order to get more performance based, you start basically having more trends. Like, you're collecting data collection. You're going to have, you have to have the minimum of this days or 15 minutes and up to 3 years, where when you're doing M&V. And then it started going into, it started changing other things where like, we got to have this much data. You got to show this, you got to prove this, and that was great. It was the most wonderful thing in the world, where it just started on like, I want to prove the building. I want to prove the solar. I want to prove we saved, why put meter. Remember, you can't improve what you can't measure, right? So it's just like, put meters in, right? So reduce the energy, put meters in, reduce the water, put meters in, you do this. Wonderful. I think it's still the most amazing things. You have to understand what's going on. But then it just started to take off, where you're just like, how many people are walking through the building? How many people counters do we have? Where are they going? Circulation. It's just like, should I keep my restaurant open at night? Should I not? How much of my lights are coming on? Can I dim my lights 10%, 20%, 50%, 30%? It's kind of like, was there a mosquito in the room? I mean, it gets to the point where it's just like, it's so much data, all these different points. And then of course, more server, more Azure, more this. I mean, okay, I always equate it back to the humans, right? So your phone, how many pictures does someone have on their phone? I have 24,000 on my phone. I pay extra because I'm in the field taking pictures. I pay extra for the gigs. How many drop boxes do we have? I have 4. Okay. I pay extra for my drop boxes. Like, okay, think about it. How many people used to have a MySpace, right? And then you didn't use it for a while. You lost all your pictures. They're gone, right? I know I'm so old at MySpace.
MySpace.
I'm serious. Like, for those who had pictures, you're like, oh, I can't find them. They're gone. Like with Facebook, it's just like all the pictures, all the data. I mean, think about it. When people say, oh, I'm going to keep my trends, I'm going to keep the points, and you have 15 million bits, right? What do we need? What do we have to keep? What do we look for trends? And then when you get rid of them, and I know I just went on a tangent, but yes, data is amazing. Data is king. Data is everything. But data costs money.
Yes. So you've hit the nail on the head there. The problem with information and data is that you can replicate it and produce it for zero cost. Right. So back in the day, when drawings were, go to buildings, right? When drawings were hand drawn, there was a lot of man hours in a drawing.
Yeah.
Right. So to replicate that or change it made you pause because it was work. Right. Now you can take a set of drawings and reproduce them 1 million times for $0.
Yeah.
And distribute them for $0. Right. So the problem is there's no value attached to it. So everyone is drowning in it and covering their ass by sending out hundreds of this, hundreds of that, hundreds of that. These things need to have a price attached to them, I think, is one thing. Now, they do have a price attached to them, but most people don't see it. And that's the cost of electricity and data centers and blah, and AWS subscriptions and Azure subscriptions, right? Yeah. So is there a data overload issue? Yes. And I think it's because the marginal cost to produce data and information is 0. And that is a problem.
But it's always Murphy's Law, right? As soon as you're like, oh, these pictures are 5 years old, I don't need these anymore. Delete. And all of a sudden, like literally 2 days later, like, hey, by the way, we just had something happen. Do you have the? Oh my God. It's just like, I just deleted this, or I put it in Deltek, or I archived it. Oh my God. Good luck trying to find something in an archive where you just don't know where it went, and you got to get permission. That's why it's like, how many of us used to have, I mean, I literally right here, I have 14 drives that sit right over here. I keep them just in case, because you never know, right? But at the same time, you're not allowed to plug anything in the computer anymore. You do this, you do that. Where does it go? It's to the cloud. You don't know. I mean, even though everything is like perfectly safe proof or whatever like that, how many people right now have lost data on their computer that they should have never lost because you told it's there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there is overload because there's a tax, there's a toll to pay for data overload and information overload, and that is time.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you pay with is stress, right?
Yes.
So you've got to keep it simple. So one of the oxymorons of our age is people go, oh, sustainable green buildings, they need to be complex. I call bullshit on that. They need to be simple, passive, as few control points as possible. There are control points only necessary to manage and measure the performance of that building. No more, no less.
Well, okay, here's the thing.
You're triggered there. I can see that. Go.
Well, I say this because I remember, I'll never forget, like, going through the architectural engineering stuff like that when you're in college or whatever like that. You put so much time into all the with architects, iterations, all this work, and then you finally just get to the final drawing, like the final glass, the final this, and then all people see is just the end result of the beautiful.
Yeah.
Like they see the system working. Like they don't see the 8 million failures that happened to get to there. And so the thing about it is all people want to see is like, just, like, oh, here's the building. Like I always joke around. I say it's 2023 here, but a lot of the times it's 1923 underneath the building, where the tunnels are, where all the stuff is, right? All they want to see is that. So you just said, make it simple, keep it simple, stupid, kiss, right? But that's at the end of the day, when you turn something over, it should be like that. Okay, great. But the problem is how often do we actually get that final as-built set that has the exact location of everything, and the conduit or the lights or the control box or the power pack?
That drawing doesn't exist.
The thing about it is it doesn't exist because they've already basically produced 40 drawings of the same thing, but it moved. At the end of the day, though, like you think about what you just said, you got to put the money in and you got to be able to pay for it. But at the end, they're like, well, where's my as-built? Guys, I already went over like budget with my 18th as-built. I'm sorry here. But when someone picks up a project 5 years later and they look at the as-built and you're like, that's not the wall. It's, oh no. And then you lost.
Yeah. Now, is it? I noticed that real high performing people that I admire who can perform at high level and produce well are the people that can cut out the noise of too much information and data. They're really good at selecting what they should zero in on and ignoring other stuff. And the people that struggle the most and burn out are the people that look at everything that comes across their desk, right? There is an art, and it is probably an art, not a skill, to managing data and information. And that is part of what can turn you from someone who's just barely surviving to someone who's a master at their job. Well,
it's also like how you write an email or this or that. Listen, I'm getting better in my life every day. I'm getting better. I'm writing less. I mean, I fall prey to this all the time. My PowerPoint presentations, too much words, this, because I'm always one of those, I'm a detailed person, right? And so it's just like, it's always about context and this and that. But I can tell you right now that it's just, people, when they hear something for the first time, they forget it, maybe even to the 10th time. That's why, like, anybody knows me knows I repeat myself again and again and again, and I'm not doing it to be a jerk. I just know that if I keep on saying it, people will pick up on it. And usually by the 10th, maybe the 15th time, they're going to go, wait a minute, did you just say that blah, blah, blah? And I go, yes. And they're like, I probably didn't hear you the first 20 times. It's okay. You heard it that time. But you got to have that. And that's what I do. Anybody knows me. It's just repeat, YouTube, repeat until they go. And it's nobody's fault because my priorities are not your priorities, right? And you're busy doing so many things. And the commissioning people, we're like laser focused on all these things. It's just too much data. People, you just can't digest it.
I think the answer to this is project management professionals need to have in the project management plan a data management policy and information management policy. And
we have to have project controls. We have document controls on jobs now, project controls on job, project accounting on jobs. I mean, it's just operational people need to be on jobs. It's just Like, but document control. I mean, think about how many documents, like we're setting up a project right now that we're going to have 10 different people doing 10 different reviews of Bluebeam. Like Bluebeam's got to set up. This has got to set up. Who's going to record the comments? I mean, it's just again and again and again.
Well, there is a cost to this, right? So
Yeah.
in the Middle East, there's a thing called Aconex, which is used as a document management system. It's a bit like Procore, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. It's a disaster. And we have to employ someone on the project team to manage the amount of stuff that goes in and out of it. That is a tax on the job and a cost that job should not have to bear. Right? Should be in the key word there, right?
But who's going to do it?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so yeah, don't get me on an Aconex rant. I'll never stop talking. But long story short, I think there is a data overload problem. And if you are a person working in the AEC industry, develop the skill to ignore probably 80% of the stuff that comes across your desk. You just need to be able to pick. The real skill is picking out what to dive into and then ignoring the rest. What did Winston Churchill say? You shouldn't bark at every car that goes by.
No, but at the exact same time, be careful about what you keep and what you put away, because if you don't know what it was originally and you come back and say, oh no, we should go back to this, and you threw it away because you thought, oh, this is the solution and that one was a better one. See, once again though, it's basically it's a double-edged sword. It's a dichotomy where it's just like, keep it simple, stupid, but wait a minute. Keep what you had originally so you can see what's going on.
So the easy way to start this is do not accept CC emails. So when I take a team over or start a job, I do a little speech and it goes like this. If you CC me on any email, I promise you 1000% I will never read it, ever. If you want me to respond to an email, I have to say, dear Adam, please will you do blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, Now what I will do though, I will file that email. So if you come at me with a load of BS, I can pull it up and look at it. But if you want me to do something, you have to say, dear Adam, when you see 20, 10, 20, 30 CCs on an email, that is utter BS. That is arse covering at the highest order.
Oh, I know. It's just the thing. It's just, that's another conversation.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. That's a different chat show. Anyway, let's wrap this up. I personally think there is data overload. And if you want to deal with that, develop the skill to triage the data that comes across your desk.